Welcome to Heaping Spoonful, a twice-monthly conversation with restaurateurs, chefs, growers, and others who have helped generate the legends associated with the eateries across the Mid-South. The team at Benny Keith is proud to sponsor this adventure with the goal of preserving the stories that have helped cultivate an amazing food scene across the Mid-South. So kick back and enjoy a Heaping Spoonful.
Greetings, everybody out there in podcast land, and welcome to Heaping Spoonful. I am Kelly Bass, your host, and I really appreciate Benny Keith Foods giving me the chance to visit with some of the top chefs and restaurateurs across the Mid-South on these podcasts. I've been a foodie so long that term wasn't even invented when I started getting into the food scene. And then, yes, I'm old. For 30 plus years, I had the privilege of writing dining reviews and features about restaurants for a couple of Little Rock newspapers and then later magazines, before the internet gave everybody a chance to be a food critic. And I'm going to tell you something straight from the heart. I like talking about food a lot more than I like writing about food, and Benny Keith has given me that chance with Heaping Spoonful. Today, our guest is Gilbert Alaquinez, a chef and fixture on the Little Rock dining scene, who since has taken on more of a behind-the-scenes role. It still impacts what you eat in restaurants. It's just not him cooking it in the restaurant. We'll explore all that a little bit in a minute, and sorry to be so mysterious about that. Welcome to Heaping Spoonful, Gilbert.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here.
Glad you are. You've become a well-known and well-respected chef in the vibrant restaurant scene that Little Rock is lucky to have. But unlike many of your peers, you are not a culinary school graduate. How and where did you first ever work in the restaurant business?
So many moons ago, back in San Antonio, my uncle had a restaurant, and pretty much I was wanting to get into the kitchen. He was like, "Okay, but you want to cook? Start washing dishes."
Yep.
So just like many of the other great chefs, started at the bottom, worked as a dishwasher, started from there, then kind of graduated to making, the guacamole, making the salsa, frying chips, and just, kind of just gained more momentum. And from there, I've worked at a bowling alley, doing short order stuff, making nachos and burgers and chicken tenders. And
This is still in San Antonio?
Yeah, still in San Antonio.
So did you start at your uncle's place when you were in high school? Or
Yeah, when I was about 16, 17 years old.
That's when the work world starts, right?
So,
and I'm guessing since it was guacamole and chips and salsa, that it was a Tex-Mex type.
Correct.
Restaurant.
Yeah, it was a Tex-Mex restaurant. It was called, what was it called? Oh, it was actually called the Malt House. I have no idea why it was called the Malt House, but they served shakes and stuff. But the menu was just classic Tex-Mex, enchiladas, tacos. They actually had a burger on there that was really, really good. So just a little bit of everything. But yeah, started as a dishwasher and then bowling alley and just.
So when you were at the bowling alley, was it still just a job, or did you think, hey, I kind of like this?
Well, I've always enjoyed it. Always enjoyed cooking. Was always in grandma's kitchen all the time, whether it was making tamales, tortillas, the holiday meals, all that. So always enjoyed cooking. When, Saturday and Sundays, uncles would turn on the barbecue and I'd be out there with them, grilling meat. And so I always had a big just passion for cooking. I remember back before Food Show, on PBS, watching Jacques Pepin, Child, and what's the Cajun guy's name? Justin. I guarantee.
Yeah, Justin Wilson.
Yeah, so
guarantee.
So that's kind of how, and I just had an interest for it and just loved it, like really, really loved it. And I've worked other jobs here and there throughout my career, but cooking was always there. Yeah.
Well, you grew up in San Antonio, which is one of the great food cities of the Southwest. And, we've got friends who live in New Braunfels, and we go into San Antonio and have fabulous, fabulous food. And it's such a big city. It's got a lot of different sorts of stuff there. So what brought you from San Antonio to Little Rock?
So fast forward a little bit. I was working for a food service company called Bon Appetit, not anything related to the magazine, but
right.
They're under Compass Group, which is a food service company that goes into office buildings and does cafes and that kind of stuff. So still in San Antonio, working for Bon Appetit. there was an account in Little Rock that they didn't have a chef at the time. So my executive chef was like, hey, I need you to go up to Little Rock. I need you to run the account. The same stuff that you do here, I just want you to do up there. So I think it was 2004, 2005. First time ever on a plane. So flew to Little Rock, came to the account. It was actually Altel.
Yeah.
So
sure.
they're on Riverfront. So came and hung out here for a week and, ran the kitchen, made some menus and, just kind of, did my thing. Went back to my account and back in San Antonio and, just kind of went about, my days. And then all of a sudden the GM from the Little Rock account was like, hey, would you be interested in being the new executive chef up here? So, of course, at 24, I was just like, yeah. So I definitely, I took the job and I moved up it was 05. So I moved up in 05. So I became, the executive chef of Compass Group here at
Altel.
At the Altel
which had thousands of employees.
Yes. So we ran the little cafe in there and, and the way Compass does their food service, they set up in stations. So there was a grill station, a salad station, sandwich, that kind of stuff. So was there for roughly 4 or 5 years. And then from there, went to the Peabody Hotel.
Okay.
So I worked under Andre Perot.
Yeah.
Worked there. I actually started as a baker's assistant.
Because I've read you like to bake. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah. So started out as a baker's assistant because there was nothing else open. But he was just like, well, just get your foot in the door and we'll see, we'll see what happens. So started there. I worked with the pastry chef, Heidi Epling. So both Chef Perot and Heidi were from New Orleans. So after Katrina, they moved up here. So worked with Heidi, learn a lot of French pastry and everything made from scratch. So that was an amazing, amazing experience. And I always had a big interest on baking and cakes and breads. And so it was awesome. And then Capriccio restaurant there
in the Peabody, right?
They were hiring a sous chef. So Chef Andre was like, hey, we're gonna move you up to the restaurant. So worked there as a sous chef for a little bit, and then all of a sudden there was an exodus from the pastry shop for whatever reason or another. Everybody left, and Chef Andre is like, "Look, you're the only one else that knows Heidi's recipes, and you work very well with Heidi. So let's get you back. We'll pay you all the overtime you can take." And so Heidi and I ran the pastry shop.
That's mostly for banquets and events at the State House and all that.
Yeah, so for the State House, we
not the restaurant, but all the other food service at the...
Well, we did the desserts for the restaurant.
Oh, right, which
breads,
makes sense, of course.
And we did all the amenities and, of course, if there was any weddings or functions or whatever, so... And, of course, all the brunches.
Yes.
Making thousands and thousands of pieces of little, French pastry. So yeah, it was an awesome... I thoroughly enjoyed it. And then one day, Chef Jason Knapp from the Arkansas Governor's Mansion, he was in there because he needed help on a dessert for the Governor's Mansion. And so I got to know Jason, and, we joked around, and we hung out for a couple of days there in the pastry shop because he was trying to learn from Heidi how to do a certain, I forget what the dessert was. And then he actually was like, hey, well, we need someone at the Governor's Mansion. And at that time, I was like, man, well, we're about the same age. Like, I would rather still learn more from Heidi and more from Chef Andre. So I kind of was like, well, we'll see. And then I get a call a few days later. Jason was like, hey, well, I got your resume. And, I'm like, how did you get my resume? And so he offered me a job at the Governor's Mansion. And then I went to go talk to Chef Andre. And I was like, hey, it's like, Jason told me he got my resume. He was like, Gilbert, I gave him your resume. He's like, you need to go. You need to fly. Like, I think you're at a point now where, you need to kind of grow and move forward. And so went to the Arkansas Governor's Mansion, worked there on halfway of Governor Beebe's first term, and then worked there on his second term. So about a year into the governor's mansion, Jason left. And then I got promoted to executive chef there at the governor's mansion. So, great job, hanging out with the BBs all the time. And of course,
Who are cool people.
very, very cool people. The functions that we did, the people that I met, dignitaries from around the world, presidents, CEOs. Actually, my first time meeting President Clinton was at the governor's mansion. So that was, that was an amazing experience.
Sure.
And so just doing all the events there. And
How does that generally work? So if someone's having an event, whether the governor's himself or his team is running it, or whether it's a fundraiser or other events, do they just consult with you and say, we kind of think we want something, or do you just say, here's some options, or how does the menu get built for those kinds of events?
So we would customize as needed, but we definitely had a standard menu with appetizers, entrees, desserts, cakes. But also, if the client would want to consult with us, then we would sit down in the office and kind of go over, or if they had a theme or just something that they wanted customized for the menu, we would definitely talk about it and try to do our best to,
Sure.
to accommodate their requests. And but most of the time, we did a lot of just standard off the menu stuff. And we did plated functions for up to 240 people.
It's a beautiful room. Anybody listening nearby Little Rock, Arkansas, who has had the chance to be in that great hall downstairs at the governor's mansion, it's really beautiful space.
Yeah, and it was awesome. And a lot of people don't know this, but all the wood is local from Arkansas. The chandelier has crystals from, quartz mines here in Arkansas. So everything in that room was Arkansas related. And it was awesome. Even the plates, everything was on there, was the diamonds on the plates, the apple blossoms, just
All
everything
Arkansas
was all
themed.
Arkansas themed. So that was amazing experience. And then
You were there several years, right?
I was there 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Into the Asa Hutchinson regime?
no, I left right before Asa took over. It
Okay.
was on Governor Beebe's last year.
Right, that's right, because he did 8 years and you did 1 and 4, I guess, basically. Right.
So, and then from there, Chef Stephen Burrow from the Clinton Center was like, hey, I need, someone to come help me run the Clinton Center. And so again, I was like, well, I don't want to, I don't want to lose an opportunity to, so to me, it was a step up from the governor's mansion to go to the Clinton Center. So I came on board for the Clinton Center and, worked there. Bunch of great people. It was the biggest staff that I've managed still today, was over 25 people. And of course, this is before 42 was open for dinner, but I was the executive sous chef there. So
you had a big lunch business. Were y'all doing brunch then at that point? Just
we
lunch?
were doing the Mother's Day and the Easter brunches.
Right.
But we weren't doing, the restaurant was not open for brunch. The restaurant was open Monday through Saturday. So, and of course, any guests to the museum were able to come down there, grab a sandwich, a coffee,
Sure, glass of wine. Yeah.
glass of wine. So I ran, all the caterings, all the banquets, the offsites. Also, when President Clinton or Secretary Clinton or Chelsea Clinton would come into town, I would have their itinerary. We would go shopping. We would keep the suite upstairs or on the roof of the library.
I've gotten to go up there. It's pretty swanky.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. So then about a year and a half, and then Chef Steven left. And at the time, I really didn't want to be or to have the executive chef role just because I was just had my rhythm going, had my routine, and
Sure.
so. But because of all the other 42 staff and Mike Seelig, who's the F&B manager, and all the catering managers, like, no, Gilbert, we want you to do it because we don't want someone else to come in here and mess up what we've already, accomplished. Sure. So I took the position as executive chef, and it was amazing. We went through the restaurant remodel, and after the after we opened, and we did dinner, and then started doing brunch on the weekends, and still keeping up with all the other events and banquets and stuff that we were doing there. So, so again, I was there for another 5 years. Great time, had an amazing time again. The pleasure of cooking for the Clintons and everybody else that would come through there. Variety of the friends of Clinton.
Well, and dignitaries and famous people of all sorts.
Oh, yeah. It was, especially when he had his, was it the 10-year anniversary to his presidency, I believe?
Yeah.
Kevin Spacey, Dixie Chicks, Barbara Streisand, Nick Jonas. It was pretty cool.
Well, and people, again, we hope people are listening on other planets and certainly around the world, but those who are in the central Arkansas area, if you don't go regularly to eat at 42, even though Gilbert's not there anymore, Chef Andre, from your mentor from your days at the Peabody, is. And it is a fantastic restaurant. And when the weather's nice, to sit out there on that patio looking over the river and having a nice brunch or lunch there is great too. So I'm sure that was, again, it's there's really no two more iconic buildings. I mean, maybe the state capitol, but you know what I'm saying? The Governor's Mansion and the Clinton Center are famed places. And there you met Bill Clinton when you were at the Governor's Mansion, never knowing that you'd be cooking for him when you went to his presidential library. Yeah. So, and one of the dinners that I really remember and really it's just going to just be a memory that it's going to be awesome. It was another anniversary, and I can't remember what exactly it was, but it was obviously President Clinton, Secretary Clinton, but as well as President Bush and Laura Bush. Wow. And then also Prime Minister Tony Blair. Oh, wow. So being able to say that I cooked for all those people at a dinner was pretty awesome. So I would definitely take that memory, and because I know there's other chefs around the world who have cooked for people like that, but there's not very many of them. So it was definitely certainly not in Little Rock, Arkansas. Yeah. So it was definitely a huge accomplishment, or I felt it was a huge accomplishment for me. So yeah. Well, that's fabulous. All right, listen, thanks, Gilbert. We're going to take a short break here on Heaping Spoonful. We'll be back in just a little bit with Gilbert Alaquinez. So stay tuned.
I hope you're enjoying this episode of Heaping Spoonful. We at Benny Keith Foods enjoy talking about the food scene almost as much as we enjoy providing the top quality ingredients that help restaurateurs and chefs across the Mid-South create their magic. Now let's dive even deeper into the culinary world with your host, Kelly Bass.
All right, everybody, we are back on Heaping Spoonful. We're going to continue our conversation with Gilbert. So you are having a big time because the other cool thing about, I work right down the street from the Clinton Center, about having lunch there is you meet or you see people from all over, because that is a huge draw for tourists who come through Little Rock or make a point to come to Little Rock to go to the Clinton Center and the Presidential Library. So what led your next stop is also a very well-known and well-liked restaurant in the Hillcrest area, Kamuri. What led to that transition from the from the Clinton Center to Kamuri? So at the time, had a doctor friend that wanted to open up a restaurant. And you said, no, I was like, don't do it. I was like, if you want to make money, the restaurant business is not where you want to go. And he was a big foodie, loved his wine, very, very knowledgeable about all different kinds of food. And I actually joked with him. I was like, well, just hire me as your private chef. Yeah. And then you don't have to worry about, having a brick and mortar and bills, and you just pay me a salary, and I would do whatever events or host dinners for you and whatever. And it started probably, so I was Clinton Center for 5 years. It probably started around year 4 that I was there. And we would have dinners, and I'd come over to his house and we'd cook and talk about it. And so he just kind of kept on and kept on and kept on. And finally I was just like, okay, let's hear what's the plan. And, he was like, well, he never mentioned what restaurant it was, but he was like, I'm going to buy a restaurant, and I want you to come on board. I'm going to start a new restaurant group, and I want you to be the executive chef for the restaurant group. And after we buy the restaurant, and once it gets established, I want to start,
getting into making concepts for fast casual restaurants.
Which remains a hot concept.
Yes. So that was kind of the idea. And, it sounded good. And, it was something that, just being a chef, you want to be creative as much as you can. So it was definitely having more avenues to be, because sometimes a restaurant theme or a restaurant, just doesn't, you can't put certain items on a menu because it's just not related to the restaurant, or it doesn't fit the theme to the restaurant. So I was like, okay, well, I get to play, I get to design new things. And if I see stuff on TV or read it in a magazine, or, I'd be able to, experiment and play and actually put these new menu items to, So from there, we talked about it. Obviously, spoke about salary and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, all right. I was like, sign me up. So left the Clinton Center.
And went to Kamuri. So I came into Kamuri. And of course,
tell people about what kind of restaurant. I mean, they might know from the name, but talk about what its main draw is. Kamuri is a Japanese restaurant. Sushi is their biggest thing. I mean, it's, in my opinion, it's still some of the best sushi in Arkansas.
Right.
And as working there.
But you weren't a sushi guy, right?
I wasn't a sushi. Well, so during lunch, I would roll like the California rolls or the spicy tunas, and, because obviously being a chef for so long, like you just kind of know how to do the basic roll. So I would, at little by little, I was kind of helping and just doing the really simple stuff. But by no means was I a sushi chef, but I definitely ran the hot kitchen. So the robata, and the robata is, we would cook the little appetizers over an open fire. Mm-hmm. So that was, my kind of help in the kitchen, doing specials. But my biggest role was making sure that everything was consistent,
and documented,
that recipes were on paper. So if one of the kitchen guys made it and the other kitchen person made it, it was going to be this very consistent all the time, because the goal was to open several other Kamuris.
Right. So your doctor friend bought a very popular, successful restaurant, so he wanted you to come in and just keep it rolling just like it was, except to do it a little more professionally and to document the recipes and get the consistency.
Correct. So yeah, that was my main role, was to keep everything consistent. And of course, everybody was like, Gilbert, don't change nothing. I was like, I'm not here to change anything.
Right.
I just want to make sure that it's consistent. So day in and day out, when y'all come in, it's the same product every time. So that was my main duty there. And then when we started talking about, going over the other fast casual concepts, I was like, well, I can't do it in the kitchen at Kamuri because I don't want to be in the way of, lunch or dinner and, trying to make something.
Sure.
So the doctor friend was like, well, I'm not going to buy you another brick and mortar for you to
have a test
experiment, play in. So I was like, well, after, having a cocktail or something, I was like, man, what could we do? And of course I was like, well, you know what? Let's do a food truck.
Yeah.
Doing a food truck. And then we could go right into the market, right into wherever we needed to go, test the recipes, and we would get immediate feedback, whether they were good, not good, we needed to tweak them, we needed to do this. So, and then, of course, since it was going to be my lab or my test kitchen, that's where the food truck got its name, The Lab.
Yeah.
It was kind of a little joke also, because the thing was we were going to go to the clinics where, the doctor had all his pain clinics, and we were going to go there, and the nurses were going to be like, hey, I'm going to the lab for lunch. So It was just kind of a joke how it started, but, obviously it was my lab. It was a joke for the nurses and that kind of stuff.
And a built-in clientele because your doctor friend had clinics.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
People were hungry at lunch.
So that worked out, extremely well.
So you were trying things that you might end up putting in a brick and mortar someday.
Correct. So, and one of the things that we tossed around the idea was doing a rice bowl concept. Yeah. So just grilled meats, veggies, kind of almost like a, bim bim bop or that kind of style of, because
Kind of a
doctor-
Genghis grill sort of thing? Is that not fair?
Not really a stir fry, just putting stuff on top of a steamed rice.
I got you.
Because the doctor wanted everything healthy.
Yeah,
and he was definitely health conscious. So, white rice, brown rice, that kind of stuff, lean meats, veggies, so that kind of stuff. So that was kind of the first concept that we started playing on. And then, we got rolling, and then all of a sudden, or I guess not all of a sudden, but COVID hit.
Right.
And of course, I know everybody felt COVID when it actually came to the States. And so that was a big bummer because, every restaurant was, trying to figure out what to do, the social distancing, or being closed down.
Right.
Everybody.
Delivery / curbside pickup.
Exactly. Everybody was running either some kind of drive-through, pickup, that kind of, so everybody was scrambling to keep afloat to make sure that they can keep the business going. So on that same thing, I got approached by Kyle Pounders, who ran Excalibur.
Yes.
And he had this new thing that was popping up, and he was like, it's through World Central Kitchen. And so World Central Kitchen is a company or an organization ran by Jose Andres.
Oh, yeah.
Very, very famous chef. So they actually approached the Clinton Library to make the meals there. And then Kyle's idea was, instead of just putting the meals in a van or a car or a truck, he would put the meals in local food trucks around Little Rock. So I don't know if a lot of people saw how everything, but we would go to schools around Little Rock and we would distribute all these meals.
And a lot of chefs got involved. I think Andre was involved. I know Scott McGee was involved. You were there?
I was involved. Hayne from Delta Biscuit.
Yeah.
Kyle, Alaskan, the dumpling. I can't remember their name off the top of my head. But anyway, a lot of food truckers got involved. And we, went to a school. I was actually assigned to Terry Elementary. So I would take the food truck, go out there. I was probably running about 250 to 300 meals a day. Yeah. And we did it Monday through Friday from 4 to about 6.
So people could come pick them up.
So the communities would come pick up. It was food for everybody. So, and so it was an amazing job. It was just amazing that, obviously the communities were very, very thankful, because nobody knew what was going on. And, so it was just amazing to bring, some sense of comfort, through a meal for the community. So it was again, I've had several amazing, awesome experiences, but definitely being able to help someone in need was just an extremely, huge, good feeling for me. So
you picked that up obviously in March-ish of 2020 and then carried it through for those first roughest months of COVID.
Yeah, and then I think in the summer is when it really got pretty bad. And at the moment, obviously all the restaurants weren't running to full capacity, so money was very, very tight. And unfortunately, the owners came to me and they're like, Gilbert, we just can't, we can't pay your salary anymore. But they're like, but we're going to offer you a deal. I'm like, okay. And they're like, you designed the food truck. You wrote the business plan for the food truck. Everybody knows you for the food truck. We'll rent the food truck out to you. And you can do whatever you want. You just pay us, a monthly, a rent pretty much for the truck. And, we'll work it that way. And they're like, you can keep it parked here at Kamori. You can use the little, there's actually a banquet room on top of Kamori. That was one of the things that we did when I was there. We opened up a banquet room. So there was a little kitchen area up in the banquet room that I was able to do prep, be able to do that stuff. So, it was a great deal, obviously. And at that moment, food trucks were the thing because it was open air. People can walk up, get their food, get in their car. So I was like, okay, done. So I opened the food truck, had it roughly open for about 9 months. And that was, of all the places that I worked at, always had someone telling me like, you can't put that on the menu, or we can't do that, or, this and that. So the food truck was my kind of
lab.
Yeah, was kind of like, I can do whatever I want.
Sure.
So being a chef, I was like, okay, what am I going to put on the menu? So my 3 favorite things: cheeseburgers,
Yeah.
ramen,
Yeah.
tacos.
You can't really go wrong. Ramen's become kind of a thing.
So-
we had Kobe here talking about his ramen.
So, and I've always been a ramen head. So, being able to do that, and I at the time, I didn't think it was going to be such a huge success. Like, it was pretty awesome. When the Mighty Rib released, his burger review, my burger was number 2 in Little Rock. So
that's a big deal.
And when that article came out, it was a Friday night. I was at the filling station in North Little Rock, and let me tell you, I have never cooked so many burgers in my life. That night.
The Mighty Rib is a food blogger and great guy, Kevin Shalin. He's actually been one of the few non-chefs or restaurateurs that's been a Heaping Spoonful guest. But it shows the power of his audience.
Oh, yeah, for sure. He has a lot of followers.
Oh, man, that guy. So
before I even opened the door to the food truck, there was a line wrapping around the building and around the truck. And
burgers aren't instant.
No. Everything was cooked to order. And that was the only thing that I was running that night. I was like, no. They're like, I want that, or I want that. I was like, no. Are we doing this burgers tonight? Because there's no way that I can keep up with, with the other food items. So, and then my ramen was, a big hit. It was, I actually did, and of course, like many other chefs, David Chang's Momofuku, Ivan Ramen, his cookbook. So kind of took research from both of those cookbooks and, what I saw on the internet and magazines and stuff from ramen. And so I developed my own little style, cross between a tonkatsu and a shoyu ramen. So, but my thing was like, I cooked the broth for 24 hours.
Right.
So
that's where it all starts.
And once I had a good broth down, then it was just very simple. I had a piece of sous vide pork belly, a little bit of scallion, and that was pretty much, and of course the marinated egg. I love eggs and ramen. So that food truck went on for about 9 months. And then September, I believe the last Sunday in September, I believe it was like September 30th or something, I closed the food truck down. So I did the farewell tour, as I called it. And
just because you were tired of doing it?
No, I had a job lined up.
Okay.
And so closed the truck down, and, the rail yard was my last set, as the food truckers call it. So was there. Everybody came out. It was, again, another crazy night because I was closing the doors. And so October, I was going to take the month of October off, and then I was going to start this new job in November. Well, unfortunately, the job fell through. And so, of course, being a chef, I've never had the holidays off.
Yeah.
So, and walking away from the food truck was very successful, had enough money to just kind of hang out. So I took the month of October, November, and December off.
Good for you.
So I didn't know what to do since, I was working 14, 15 hours a day, 7 days a week. I didn't really know what to do with my time, but, it was awesome. Got to ride my bike, hung out with my daughter, was able to enjoy the holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's. So it was an amazing, amazing time. And of course, the new year comes around, and of course, the money's running out a little bit. So I was like, well, I need to get something else going. And again, shout out to Kevin Shalin again. He kind of texted me. He's like, hey, do you want to do consulting with a local brewery in town? And I'm like, yeah. Like I need to get to work. And so not knowing that it was Jess McMullen, and I've known Jess for years when he first opened Flyway. So that, we talked about it, and he was like, I want you to come in here. I need to get, again, the same thing what I did at Kamuri, consulting, getting recipes on paper, making sure things were consistent. Because any successful restaurant, consistency is key.
Well, yeah, people don't even think about the fact that someone different is making their food if they come 3 times. it's not the same person necessarily. It might be.
And
it's all got to be the same.
Right. And I'm pretty sure, people that have visited restaurants long enough, they know they're like, well, so-and-so is probably not back there because it just doesn't, and that was, again, my biggest duty was making sure things were consistent. And I was coming up with specials, and we were trying to get the kitchen organized more efficiently and that kind of stuff. So I was there from mid-January to about mid-June. So had fun there. I had a great time.
This is in 21? 21.
Yes, 21. So had a great time. And then Mr. Rusty Mathis came to me, shout out Rusty. He was like, hey, you're still interested in food sales? I'm like, yeah. I was like, I want to,
And Rusty's the general manager of Benny Keith's, where we're sitting right now, by the way. So
yeah, so I was like, I don't want to get out of the restaurant business, or I want to get out of the kitchen is what, I've been doing it for 25 years. So it was like my body hurts.
Sure. It's grueling work.
So he got me in touch with Hank's Brokerage, which is currently my job now. And my boss is named Rory. So he got me in contact with Rory. He's like, call this number, talk to him. I told him that he needs to hire you because you're the guy I want for the Mid-South region. And I'm like, okay. So had a great, phone interview with Rory. Things went extremely well. Obviously because of Rusty's blessing, Rory was like, well, you're hired. It's just that we can't start you until July because that's when the fiscal year starts.
Sure.
So they were like, okay, we're going to get you in July. And so, I started in July of 21. And it was hard getting used to working from home. And it was just, I almost felt kind of guilty in the sense because working in the kitchen, as soon as you walk in the door, you're in the kitchen, 12 hours a day and you're just rolling, people are coming to ask you stuff. You're delegating other duties and you're just running. So I'm just here on my couch, on my computer, and of course I knew a lot of the chefs in Little Rock because of my previous job. So I talked to Rory and I was like, hey, should I just go out and start, knocking on doors?
Tell people what Hank's does.
So what Hank's does, so we're a brokerage firm. So what we do is manufacturers throughout the U.S., they come to us and either they're in the food service business or they want to get in the food service business. They come to us and we pretty much market their food or their products for them. So my job is I'm pretty much assigned to Benny Keith. So say like 1855 or Compart Pork, their regional reps come to us and then we go and we talk about products to restaurants, since my area is Mid-South. So I go all over Arkansas, northern Louisiana, northern Mississippi, and in Tennessee.
And you work with Benny Keith to then to stock and deliver that.
Correct. So I will ride with the reps, with the Benny Keith reps. They're like, hey, Gilbert, I need you to bring samples of your products. So I pack a bunch of coolers and we go, we go riding around the reps and the reps are like, okay, this is Gilbert with Hank's. He's going to talk to you about different products. So I talk about our beef, our pork, our chicken.
You show them how to cook it.
I do, yes. And I try not to step on the chef's toes because when I was a chef, I didn't like the brokers coming in either. So I was, but because of me being a chef, the other chefs recognized me and they're like, okay, what do you got? Gilbert, show us something. So part of my job was going in there, doing culinary demos. And now it's kind of coming to the thing too. They're like, hey, well, can you help me out with the menu? So I help consulting with menus. Whatever I need to do to sell the product, so it's a win-win for Benny Keith and it's a win-win for me
for Hank's and for everybody.
The
manufacturer.
So, as long as I'm able to bring the products, them showing how to cook the products or maybe breaking down, a primal, whether it being a ribeye or a chuck roll or a tenderloin. So, yeah, whatever services I can offer to make that sale go through, or for that restaurant to stock that product, is pretty much what I do. So,
Sure.
And I travel a lot. I do all the Benny Keith food shows. So Benny Keith, I don't know if most people know this, they're in Colorado, they're in New Mexico. We're in, I say we because I'm like always here, but I joke, I'm pretty much.
Oh, not just Benny Keith Mid-South, but Benny Keith.
Benny Keith, the
which has,
Benny
I believe, 8 or 9 food divisions.
Correct. So Oklahoma, Texas.
Yeah.
Like I said, we got one in Elba, Alabama.
One in Florida.
One in Florida. And then they just picked up one in North Carolina.
I did not know that.
So now we actually have a warehouse in Charlotte. So yeah, I pretty much go wherever Benny Keith needs me to go, I go. And then because Hank's works very closely with Benny Keith, I get to do some of their corporate food shows. So I've done a Latino food show. I've done the Colorado Restaurant Association show. I've done the New Orleans or the Louisiana Restaurant Association show in New Orleans. So I still get to cook. I still play with food. And it's an amazing job. I mean, the perks of the job are, since we represent manufacturers, well, the manufacturer's like, well, I need you to know how this food tastes or how good the product is. So at home, I actually have 3 freezers
full of food.
Yeah. I mean, and I've joked about this before, but I haven't had to buy meat in 2 years. And that's, everybody that's out there knows how much the cost of meat is going up. Sure. So it's definitely a huge perk to the job. But, I get to play with the food. I come up with new stuff. Sometimes the manufacturer's like, hey, I need you to take this pork loin, or I need you to take this, ribeye, and I want you to dry age it, or I want you to wet age it, or I want you to do something and see what you can come up with, so we can, for one, give information out to customers, 2, take pictures, do with either social media or websites or that kind of stuff. So it's, I consult with the manufacturers also. So it's kind of it's pretty much a dream job as a chef, getting to just, see what you can do creatively with the different products and
well, it's a natural progression from, starting from the dishwasher, but then again, not having to find yourself at 8:30 every Friday and Saturday night of your life, cranking out plate after plate after plate with your crew in the kitchen. So, really, really cool. Gilbert, well, listen, thanks a lot for being our guest today on Heaping Spoonful. Continued good luck with what you do. It sounds really fun. It sounds, again, right up your alley. And you're still making a difference, and it's just on a different level and a different scale. Yep. And thanks, everybody, for listening to Heaping Spoonful. We do our best to get new episodes up on the 1st and 3rd Tuesday of each month. So keep an eye out for them and check out any ones you might have missed. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks, Gilbert.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Heaping Spoonful. On behalf of all of us at Benny Keith Foods, Mid-South Division, please know how much we love connecting you with the legends of the culinary scene and their unique stories. I look forward to the next time we can offer you another Heaping Spoonful.